Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about Revelations of the Daleks, written by Eric Sadewood and is directed by Graham Harper. Now, this would be Eric Sadewood's last script for the series, and is also Graham Harper's last classic Doctor Who story for the series. He would later return in New Who, which is really bloody cool. Here we have a very, very strange story. This is a two-parter in a 45-minute format, and it also concludes the first season of Colin Baker's Sixth Doctor's first full run of the show. However, the Doctor's part in this plot is obsolete. he's hardly in this one. It's really strange. In fact, in the main place where everything is happening, which is called Tranquil Repose, the Doctor and Perry don't actually arrive there in location on the set. Until part 2. So, yeah, and this story is very strangely structured. Now, according to the fan base, this is actually a really popular story. A lot of people seem to like it, although a lot of people will also address that it's very strange and very bizarre. Personally, I think this might be a bit of a flop. Eric Sadewood has said that this is his favourite story that he has written, which is just mad to think, because not only did he write one of the best Dalek stories, in my opinion, with Resurrection of the Daleks, but he also, in my opinion, wrote easily the best Cyberman story and one of the best stories in the show's history with Earthshock. And those stories were heavily praised, but for some reason he thought that Resurrection, from his point of view, was a dud. He didn't like that story, and so he wrote this to try and redeem himself. I mean, he can have his opinion on his own stories. There's nothing wrong with that, with him liking this story over that story. I just find it really strange because, despite the story being absolutely praised, everybody, at least the majority of people, agree that his previous Dalek story and his Cyberman story are some of the best in the show. So, yeah, Revelations of the Daleks. So, the story is a very odd one. I don't know if I can really talk about it in my usual way of doing these vlogs, in which I just basically just detail what happens scene by scene and just mention anything that I like or dislike. Basically, in episode 1, we get lots of introducing characters and setting up plot points. We have the Doctor and Perry arriving on this planet as the Doctor has heard that one of his friends had recently passed away, and they go into this to Tranquil Repose to see, to basically attend his funeral. Although I don't think he stated he's dead, that he wanted to basically postpone his death. Tranquil Repose is a place where the rich can have their bodies in cryostatic sealment, so that they're basically hibernating until somebody can find a cure for their illness. Or if you're when you're actually dead, you can have a really fancy funeral. And in the first episode, the Doctor and Perry's plot is basically just them getting there. Now, with this story, we get the Perry and Doctors, obviously they're dynamic. I feel like in this one, there's still a bit of that needless bickering that really holds stories in the Sixth Doctor eras down. But there are some really great moments between them, especially how early on, midway through part 1, the Doctor and Perry get attacked by a mutant who has been part of the experiments of the Great Healer. Somebody who works in Tranquil Repose. And originally he starts attacking them like beasts, but after when Perry attacks it because it was strangling the Doctor and it starts to die, it actually thanks them and forgives Perry for basically killing him, which really puts a somber mood on their relationship throughout the entire story, actually, as in this story the Doctor has basically got to comfort Perry in her darker times, because a lot of bad stuff happens to Perry. Back at Tranquil Repose, we get again, I'll get like a few plot lines. We get to see these grave robbers, this man and a woman. I believe they're a couple, I'm not quite sure. One of them's a doctor who, to calm his nerves, is a bit of an alcoholic, and this girl, she's basically looking for her father. And when they go into try to get his body, her father's body, they find that there's nothing there but like a mannequin. So they delve in deeper to try and find him, whilst guards everywhere are trying to capture them. And it's here that they discover that the Great Healer has been manipulating the living specimens, the people who have been hibernating, and turning them into Daleks, basically converting them by some great, powerful genetic engineering. And this is also the first appearance of what fans like to term the Glass Dalek, although it's not technically its first appearance. It originally appeared in a novelization by David Whittaker. I can't remember which story it was. I believe it's Power of the Daleks, but I'm not quite sure. But anyway, this is the first time a Glass Dalek appears in the show, as we see through the glass casing a mutated figure is appearing. And you can see almost make out the face of a man, and he basically wakes up and he recognizes the girl as his daughter. This is the father that they were looking for, who's actually alive and is actually getting turned into a Dalek. Now, here's a fun little Easter egg for you. If you read the credits, they actually state that this character is the character that the Doctor came onto this planet looking for, which is really, it's just a cool little Easter egg. It doesn't actually state it in the story, so yeah, that's really cool, in my opinion. And the daughter has basically been forced to kill her father because he's getting turned into a Dalek, and he is just immensely tortured by this, only for them to be captured by two of the workers of Tranquil Repose. Now, we also get introduced to another duo of characters, these two people who work there, and they don't have a lot in terms of character or personality. They're just sort of there, and they help move the plot forward, but they are very greatly acted. Now, because of this story has so many characters, and I'm not very good with names, I personally can't remember a single name. That's not an issue with the story, that's an issue with me, because I'm terrible with names, okay? So, if you haven't been watching this marathon, hello, I'm McEdam, welcome to the marathon. I'm terrible with names. There you go. So anyway, and another duo that we get introduced. Yes, this story is full of duos. We get basically the higher ups of this funeral parlor. This young lady who's basically a student, although she looks about like in her mid-30s, and she basically she's really quiet and really shy, but she's also determined in her job, and she can have her bouts of outbursts, and whilst here she kind of takes a fancy of her boss, this really disgusting old man, played brilliantly by, I can't remember his name, but he's a famous actor. He played a few character in One Foot in the Grave, I believe it was, and he also appears again in Voyage of the Dam in terms of him as an actor. And here he kind of plays like what we would now known as a Harvey Weinstein. He's kind of a sick bugger who basically is a womanizer who, as soon as he sees like what he considers a pretty woman, he goes after them and tries to impress them and stuff. And you really root for this, for the girl in this situation, as she gets treated absolutely horrible by this guy, because she seems to be the only girl that he doesn't fancy, and to the point where he's just downright disgusted by her. At one point she mentions that one of the workers there has been killed or murdered, and this character is like, shame, it could have been you. So yeah, Eric Saywood's writing comes absolutely in colour in this story. He has some really great witty dialogue. However, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people might agree with me here, and I know a few people who will disagree on me on this, but I think tonally this story is all over the place and would be, in my opinion, a precursor to stories with similar issues during the Seventh Doctor era, in which the story doesn't know if it wants to be a very light-hearted, comical story, or just a downright morbid piece of television. And so the story kind of has a schizophrenic feel, where we get introduced to really bombastic, likeable characters in a very nice looking setting with these beautiful flowers and these brilliant sets of corridors and stuff. But we get some really horrible things happening to our characters and to our situations, and it just feels, in my opinion, it kind of feels all over the place, and it does kind of take me out of the story when we have like a story revolving around death and just the morbid of it. Sometimes it tackles it very well in terms of humour, where it's like a really morbid humour, but then we get this storyline with this girl who fancies her boss, who is this disgusting womanizer, and that kind of stuff feels right out of a sitcom, in my opinion. Maybe a good sitcom, who never knows, but in terms of this story, it feels really out of place. Speaking of out of place, there's a character that a lot of people seem to like, and though I do actually like him in later on in the story, especially in part 2, in part 1 and half of part 2, I found him absolutely annoying. And you might have guessed who that is. It's DJ. Basically, some people have paid so that whilst they're in expanded animation, they can hear a radio, or at least I think they can hear a radio. It's not really that clear. And he basically influences himself over American radio personnel, which he's never actually been to Earth. So it is kind of interesting in that sense. And so he plays his character way over the top, and we get some ridiculous scenes where he's just commenting on what's happening, but he's doing it, it's really wacky voice, and you've got this like popish music in the background, and yeah, it's like I said, it's really schizophrenic feeling. Maybe that helps with this story's enjoyment. You do, at least I anyway, watch this story and is like, what the hell am I watching? And you get just a huge contrast. Might be too big a contrast for a story like this to work. It's just strange. But anyway, I digress. So we also learn that the Great Healer is actually Davros, who's running a secret business underneath Tranquil Repose. Tranquil Repose? Yeah, Tranquil Repose. And we also learn that he's kind of like the boss of the place. He's basically monitored all of Tranquil Repose with cameras, and we also see him basically organising more money from these group of people that he talks through. They're on a different planet, and I really like this little subplot where Davros is trying to organise money, but these people really don't like Davros, and so they basically hire these more duos, everybody, of assassins, and these characters are absolutely amazing. I really like the assassins in this story. One of them is this old fellow who used to be part of a warrior organization. I believe they called him like the Cult of Ogron or something like that. I don't know if they have anything to do with the Ogrons, but I mean, it is strange that the Daleks in it. But anyway, so this character, he was basically once a warrior, but now he's basically come out of favour of his group, and despite him now having to basically become an assassin, and because he's gotten out of favour with his people, he has basically become an assassin to basically pay his end meets, and he wishes to have a noble cause. And when these people come in, it's like, we want you to assassinate someone called the Great Healer, but his real name is Davros. And he's like, oh, I know him, he created the Daleks, we must kill him, it'd be nice to die to fight for a noble cause once again, apart from this adverts of just being a ruthless assassin. So for him, this also kind of takes a more personal matter, as this is him trying to redeem himself. And I don't know, maybe it's the performance mainly, I think, but he's just such a fun character to watch, and I really wanted to see a lot more of him. He basically becomes the main character in part 2, and what I really liked about this little subplot is we first believe that this character, the woman that Davros was working with to organise more money, that she's originally doing this to basically stop Davros, and though she knows that he's basically evil, but it's mainly more for he's taking their profits and stuff. However, we later learn that she's basically as evil as Davros, and she only really wants him killed so that this stuff that she's organised with this food that Davros makes for her would be obsolete, and that she will have a monopoly of the food in the universe, and so she will basically have all the power. And we also learn that the device that she gave to the assassins is actually a bomb, so it'll blow up like everybody on there. So that's really cool. Now, before I talk about part 2, I just want to quickly talk about the cliffhanger, because wow, this is a doozy. So the Doctor and Perry end up finally getting to Tranquil Repose. They're trying to find a door to get in. However, they initially arrive at basically the graveyard, where there's these big monuments, these like big planks of stones with people's faces to remember the dead. And they spot one with the Sixth Doctor's face, who basically states that now he's basically destined to die here. And if the statue is here and he is dead, it means in his future he's going to come to this place in the past and die and have this monument up towards him. And it kind of gets really morbid, and Perry kind of walks around trying to find her own one, theorising that if the Sixth Doctor's one is dead, then she might be here as well. Only for this ornament to fall onto the Doctor, and that's our cliffhanger. Now, personally, I think it's really absolutely hilarious, especially the way it is shot, in which it kind of falls on, you kind of see it from the Doctor's point of view, so you just have a giant Colin Baker face crumbling in front of the Doctor. It's absolutely hilarious. And what's really strange is that in part 2, at the start of part 2, the Perry tries to rescue the Doctor. However, that the man, the technically the owner, the womanizer character, basically comes up to Perry. He's like, "No, he's dead. But you're such a pretty lady. I like pretty things. It's a shame you lose one friend and you gain another." And he's basically like coming on to her, and Perry's just like, "You creep," and it's sort of strange. And then we get probably one of the most bizarre choices I've ever seen for a Doctor Who story, as the Doctor just suddenly gets up, and Perry notices there's a blood stain on his jacket, and the Doctor's like, it isn't my blood. This statue is made out of polystyrene and is covered with fake blood. Now come on, Perry, we've got to find out who pulled this prank. Basically revealing that the whole idea of the Sixth Doctor's dying in his future, in this place's past, was basically like a trick, a ploy. What does that have to do with anything? We later learn when the Sixth Doctor meets Davros that Davros put the statue there, and according to him it was to help lure the Doctor into a trap. But what? I mean, I just don't understand it. What was the point? Okay, I can understand. The Doctor looks at the statue, he goes up to it, wondering just what the hell, maybe I'm going to die here. And whilst he's contemplating all this thing then collapses onto the Doctor, killing him. Okay, I understand that. But then if you're not going to make it real, and then for some reason you put fake blood in it, what was the point? How did this help in any way in Davros's plan? It's just a very, very odd moment. And if it wasn't for the fact that it was a cliffhanger, I might have even found it a lot more, just a really funny little tidbit. But the fact that it was such a huge emphasis as it was the cliffhanger is not only just makes it much more hilarious, but I will have to criticise it for just clearly feeling like it was just set up there so a story can have a cliffhanger. Although, watching the documentary on the DVD, that isn't actually the case. The reason for this statue thing was when Eric Seawood was pitching a Dalek story, John Nathan Turner only had one request, that they have a statue of Colin Baker in there somewhere. That's the only request he had. It does not compute. Does not compute. Anyway, sorry, that moment is just so weird and so bizarre. I just can't comprehend that. It just doesn't make a lick of sense. But anyway, so let's just briefly talk about part one, because it's strange how this story is set up, because the entire first half, because this is a two-part adventure, the cliffhanger basically hits midpoint throughout the story. And part one is completely just set up and introducing us to all these characters, which is a lot. And what's really strange is that the Doctor doesn't get involved with the actual plot. Mainly it's just him getting set up. So, and he's hardly in it. I would have even said the main characters are either the body, the gravediggers, the girl who fancies the womanizer, or the two assassins. But yeah, it's a very strange story, especially to end the Sixth Doctor era, and especially for a Dalek adventure. Now, I really like Davros in this story, despite him having this weird kind of thing which mobilises Terry Malloy, who returns as Davros. So really he can only use his mouth and do kind of like this in angles. His premise and his ideas in this story really work to this narrative's favour. And I especially like how he basically manipulates the girl, the woman who fancies the womanizer. He basically sees this on his monitors. Davros basically spends the majority of the first half just watching TV and making comments on it, which is just really strange. But anyway, when he gets introduced to her and he sees that basically she's been taken advantage of, Davros basically kind of talks to her and reasons to her that this man is not only a bad man, but just a horrible person that she should kill. And in part two, we get to see Dr. Davros convince her to try and kill him. And I really like these intense scenes with them two, and they're some of my favourite moments. But anyway, like I said, the structure is paced really oddly, which luckily means that part two, despite now having no character beats, or very little, because all the character stuff was in part one, it's basically, I tell you what it's like Kill Bill, only we get the slow part first, and then we get the tons of action and just things just like rushing onto the screen, as we get a lot of character beats and a character returns, like action moments and stuff. Now, Graham Harper has been described as the best Doctor Who director, and I really like his directing in this story. By far, he is worthy of being called the best director of the series, directing Kings of Androzani as his first story, and this in his second, which is phenomenally. It looks just absolutely well, especially he has a great work with characters, with their actors. Like I said, the assassins really get out a lot of their character from their performance, and the camera just capturing all of it with some beautiful shots of the scenery and just layers upon layers of subtext in our camera. But, however, in my opinion, this is his weakest work, and I don't think it's really his fault. He is with a script which has, like I said, a schizophrenic feel to its plot, and I think he decided, maybe justifiably, to play in with that, as we get some really harsh differences in terms of sets, from the underground caverns and Davros's base basically just being with only just green lights just brightly lit up in the distance. Mostly it's just dark, to the very brightly lit funeral parlour in the top of Tranquil Repose. And we also get the nice snowy outside. Also important to note in terms of the outside, this was the last story in the classic series which used film for on-location footage. After this story, film would only be used to record model shots, but everything else would be shot on video. So this would be the last story where you can get an actor really in high definition quality. Throughout the tenure, the majority of stories would be mainly shot in standard definition, if anybody seems to care about that. And yeah, just part 2 has all these plots and all these characters meeting up and planning up against each other and teaming up, and there's just so much that goes on. I don't think I can really talk about it and give it really a justice. There's some really great moments. Eric Saywood's writing in terms of dialogue comes off incredibly well with some really witty moments. I especially like the Sixth Doctor and Davros' scenes when Davros basically reveals that people who are in suspended animation are getting turned into Daleks, but the people who he gets who are already dead get basically turned into a protein which the universe desperately needs because it's under famine. And so Davros has basically become the great healer, giving food out throughout the universe by feeding people their dead. And that's a really morbid, and that's a really disgusting plot. And the bit where the Doctor and him discuss this, and the Doctor's like, did you ever bother to tell people they're eating their own descendants? And Davros is like, of course not. That would be, I believe, would be called consumer something, but it's a very good line. And Eric Saywood gets a really great bit out of this. The assassins also find Davros and they kill him, but it turns out that the head was actually a duplicate, and the real Davros with in his black casing and his half of his body is actually there, and he kills the squire, the assassin's henchman, shall we say, and gets really beaten down. And Terry Malloy gives off a fantastic performance here. Now let's talk about Davros and the Daleks in this story, because Davros, this is the story which Davros gets a lot to do in terms of Terry Malloy's giving off a performance. You see a huge wide variety of emotions. Davros gets really angry. He gets really charming, but obviously being in a pretending sort of way. And actually, the mobility of the majority of his scenes, where he's just the head, really actually, I think, works to his benefit and really allows Terry Malloy to give off a fantastic performance. And I could be wrong, but I believe this story is the most Davros story, if that makes any sense. Like, this is a story where he appears the most in it. And the problem is that in this story, the Daleks themselves have nothing to do. They literally are stormtroopers in this story, as they just appear and basically mainly in the background until the very end, where somebody actually hires a rogue Dalek faction. Now, I forgot to mention that the Daleks in this story, the majority of them, are actually working for Davros. These are a new breed of Daleks which Davros has remade himself to obey his wishes. So they've come with a new design where they have a white painting with some gold bits. And I think these Daleks look really cool, but they would get a massive improvement in their next television appearance. And I really like the idea of these more brighter Daleks. Although, right at the very end, the, I guess you can call, I can't remember if they're the Renegades or the Imperials. They're one of them anyway. The Daleks that worship the Supreme Dalek actually come in and capture Davros and basically send him on trial. And the assassin actually decides to activate the bomb, and they all run off, and boom, basically. But before that, let's follow on from one of our plot points as Davros basically convinces the girl that to kill the man who she admired, because Davros basically has discovered that he was actually planning to betray Davros because he's got all these screens and everywhere, and he convinces the girl that he is just purely evil. And Davros is like, kill him and I will make you an immortal. I'll make you basically my right hand. And originally she obeys him, but she still has that kind of heart that makes her such a nice character. And when she tries to go up to this character, she actually is like, please, you've got to run away. The Great Healer wants you dead. He wants to murder you. And he's like, don't be stupid, girl. He doesn't want me. You're just making this up because I can have any woman I want and I don't want you because you're disgusting. And she's like, I'm risking my life just talking to you. The Great Healer wants me to kill you. You're gonna die. And he basically just doesn't listen to her. And we get a scene in which she stabs him with a needle. And and in terms of the script, I think that is a very satisfying moment as this character basically gets justice on her part as she learns to stand up for herself and this really disgusting character dies. However, in my opinion, the almost silliness of the performance really lets this down, and it comes off feeling a bit too played for the camera, if that makes any sense. But story-wise, it's still a great moment. And so, going back into the story at hand, the Doctor and Perry actually escape as the assassin sets off the bomb on a suicide mission to try and destroy as many Daleks as he can, and possibly Davros. However, Davros escapes as the other Daleks, the Daleks that work for the Supreme Dalek, their ship has already taken off. But he's destroyed as many of Davros's Daleks as much as possible. And the story ends with a semi-cliffhanger as the Doctor quotes that they need a holiday, a break. But Perry's like, can we go somewhere fun? And the Doctor's like, okay, I'll take you to... Yeah, the story ends on a sort of cliffhanger on what he says. Now, the reasoning for this is that originally the Doctor was going to say, I was going to take you to Blackpool, with the next story originally entitled The Nightmare Fair would see the Doctor and Perry in Blackpool. It's a story that led up to that for season 23. However, this would be part of the legendary hiatus of Doctor Who, in which originally the heads up of the BBC, who really didn't like Doctor Who at the time, tried cancelling the show. However, they put it on a hiatus and lost the majority of the budget, and the stories that they had planned working for season 23 couldn't come to fruition. And so John Nathan Turner reluctantly had to cancel those stories in proverb to create a new storyline for the next series. So yeah, and luckily for us, Big Finish Productions would actually adaptate a few of these scripts that went missing. So that's really cool. So yeah, this is Revelations of the Daleks. Overall, it is a good story, but in my opinion, it's just so strange and so bizarre in terms of its drama and its performances and just the entire feel of the story, that despite me having a lot of fun in this adventure, it is incredibly slow against this story, and you really just, at least in my opinion, you just really can't get a grip on this story, as some bits are too silly for the dark moments to be so impactful, but the dark moments are so dark that the cheesy moments feel really out of place, and I just don't know where to hang with this story. But like a huge fan base based on this story. A lot of people seem to like it, and a lot of people seem to be this is their favourite Sixth Doctor adventure, despite them hardly being in it. Oh, I didn't talk about the DJ. Too late about the DJ. But yeah, so that's Revelations of the Daleks. So join me next time, where we will actually be tackling some of the episodes of the original season 23, as Big Finish produced an audio drama of the Sixth Doctor and Perry go into Blackpool, and the Doctor meets one of his oldest enemies that he hasn't met since his first incarnation. So join me next time for the Nightmare Fair, and I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!